Well, welcome to another edition of Chicago Crossing Model Railroad Train Talk. It's me, Eric. Here's the layout so far. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Zen of wiring, as I call it. You're seeing Chicago Crossing at kind of a critical phase in its wiring redo. And I think it's not just Chicago Crossing. I think it's any layout. You get to a point when you're dealing with more wires than you may necessarily know what to do with. You're dealing with running low on maybe certain supplies versus others. You're running low on patience as you try to get everything the way you want it. You're running into interesting obstacles. And you are running into the limitations of your body to be working in an ergonomically awful position. The Sistine Chapel ceiling is probably a good sort of metaphor for this. Sitting on one's knees or in a weird position for hours on end, working on the variety of different wires here, all of it leads to a strong sense of impatience. All of it leads to a willingness to cut corners, to frustration, and sort of a loss of one's own logical ability to see the bigger picture and to focus on that bigger picture from the standpoint of trying to get everything set to as best of a practice as one can do. And that's real, man. My career is based off of that. Delayed gratification, waiting rather than being able to just do in terms of getting one's science done to the highest standard possible. I think model railroads are really kind of the same thing. I mean, this is a laboratory for testing out new things I want to do, and it's a laboratory for doing things right. And impatience, whether caused by the physical discomfort of crouching in weird positions for hours, or, quite frankly, the sort of mental impatience that's created by what seems like a never-ending project that moves in small increments and doesn't always feel like you're making headway, and you want to get the layout back in its normal position to operate again. All of that works against the ability to get things done to the high standard that you seek. And from that standpoint, I think one can say patience is key, and one can believe that. And actually engaging in the practice of patience is a whole other thing. I've said this before, and it's true. Model railroading is, like any hobby, not just a matter of technique, but it's also a matter of habit of mind. And what that means is the ability to use one's mind in a disciplined way, and in a way that is focused on not just the task at hand, but the bigger picture. In the case of Chicago Crossing, the last time I had this layout flipped up to do all of the lighting and things like that, or even from the initial wiring stages, that wasn't necessarily what was going on. By the time I had done all of the wiring for the LED lights and the street lights as a revision of what was originally there, that was a disaster, man. I mean, number one, the layout was in an ergonomically worse position than what you see here, so it became all the much harder to work on. But number two is eventually I just let impatience get the better of me, man. And I sat there and just tried to bodge it all together so that I could be done. So what is the antidote to that? Because the idea of bodging it together to get it all done led to this, having to essentially redo everything in a way that will be better organized and withstand the test of time. Well, I think the strategy is really to assign intention to one's time on the layout, and intention as to what one really hopes to get out of this, and to operate from that. This kind of goes back to this idea of like Zen Buddhism and the idea of basically ascribing intention to one's emotion and one's daily life. And, this is not necessarily meant to be anything religious. It's simply meant to say that, like anything, being able to assign intention is a mental practice. It is simply the ability to harness one's mind in the way that one wishes. And when one's mind goes astray, to back away and to stop. That's the practice with model railroading. So one can say, I'm going to come down here and for the next 12 hours, I'm going to wire this up and get everything done. And at least for me, my body will tell me around about 6 hours later, dude, stop. My mind will potentially start to tell me that same sort of thing around, hour 4, who knows? And what that means is it's time to take a break. So intention is certainly part of it. The other part of it that comes with assigning intention to this work is actually to reevaluate one's goals and one's experience of doing this sort of work. The way I look at it is this. Wiring and electricity are incredibly logical things. It's electron flow. It's movement of electrons from one pole to the other. There is very little else in this world that is so logical as electricity. And so for me, in just the daily turmoil of life and things like that, coming down here to work on electrons, these incredibly logical, physical things, is an incredible escape from that turmoil. And so that's the other portion of the Zen of wiring, is for me, this is actually an opportunity to just unclutter my mind. This is straightforward, it's simple, it's repetitive. It's all the things that for me, I need just to be able to, dump all the other stuff out of the door in the back of my mind and be able to focus on one thing and help just clear out the subconscious and the conscious. Your mileage may vary on that particular point, but for me, this is actually great. It's almost therapeutic. And so from that standpoint, I don't look at this as a job that has to get done at a certain time. I actually view this as a larger project and almost a little bit of a meditative practice, because it is just the same thing over and over and over again. And even the problem solving that comes with this. And I guarantee you, when I test some of this stuff, I don't necessarily get the anticipated result. But because physics is logic, because electrons are logic, the solution is always there. And the solution is always really simple. And moving slowly and staying organized and getting everything set in a logical way where I can track down what might be going on is worth its weight in gold. It's going slow to go fast. It's getting it right. And at the same time, using the experience to its utmost in terms of a mental practice to not only assign the intention of being able to do something right and do it right at last the first time, or in this case, the third, or to be able to push away the kind of natural impatience that comes when one can't run trains because they're busy doing this sort of stuff, and instead to see this experience for what it is, an opportunity to engage in a simple, straightforward meditative act that actually just helps clear the mind. And, it doesn't mean I don't want to get this done. Of course I do. But what it does mean is when I'm feeling that sense of impatience, I step away and then I come back to it. Or when my knees are telling me, dude, stop. I get up and stretch them. I do not need to have knee problems. I'm a runner. That's a terrible thing. And so I try not to come down here with any more of a goal in mind than to move the wiring forward in whatever way I can that day, in whatever way that my mind and body will allow. And hey man, if I get pretty far, that's a bonus. If I don't, that's all right. If all I do is I happen to dress some wires better and clip them together and help organize things that are down here, I guarantee you that will reap dividends for the next time that I'm down here and my mind is ready to engage in this practice and really push through. So over the weekend, I had thought, I'm going to get all the LED wiring done. What I did get done is about 2 sections out of the 5. Is that a problem? Absolutely not. This is not a biodegradable thing sitting in the rain. Like, this will be here, and so will I. Leisure and treating this as leisure is important. And, the Zen of wiring is kind of a real thing. If you can access it, then this experience is actually a lot of fun, and it's really instructive, and it's really constructive too. I've learned more about electricity and electronics within the period of time that I've been doing this than I ever knew before. I can apply that to anything I move forward with on this layout, any project you want, and it increases my own confidence in my ability to do these things. Now, that doesn't mean that I've become an electronics expert. Those of you who talk with me in the comments section whenever I post something about electronics and provide some, interesting and constructive advice on new things I haven't thought of, that's worth its weight in gold. So by no means do I claim expertise in any of these topics, but I think all of us, when you engage in a practice like this and when you take it seriously and you treat it meaningfully, you get better at stuff and you learn new things. And, what's not to love about that? That's literally the core of doing a hobby, is enjoying oneself and learning new things. For me, that's awesome. So, suffice it to say, the wiring continues. There's still a lot to do, as you can see. There's still a lot of wires that look like, chaotic bundles, and they're actually not. But at the same time, every step is a conscientious approach to making sure that this stuff is organized, that you know what everything down here is, and that if there's ever a need to come back and repair something or add something new, that it is as straightforward of an experience as possible. And believe you me, I don't want to be cutting away everything again and doing this all over. So there's a lot of time and energy invested in just getting it right. But there's also a lot of time and energy invested in enjoying that process simply for the process that it is. All right, I'll leave you with that. I got to get back to this. Anyway, have a good rest of your weekend, and see you next time.